What's up guys, it's me again, and today I'm going to show you how I made this in Blender. Let's go ahead and get started. So I have my project set up already. Basically what we're going to be doing is using an orthographic camera that's lined up perfectly with a plane, and then we're going to add geometry to this plane in edit mode. And then we're going to render this out using only the depth information, and we're going to map that to grayscale. And then we'll export as either a 16-bit PNG, or if you really want to go the extra mile, you can use OpenEXR. OpenEXR gives you, I believe, 32 bits, so just a little bit more detail. Now the reason you don't want to use JPEG's not going to help you very much. If I open this, this is just a test PNG, and you'll see these objects are flat in the geometry, so every pixel for this square is the exact same value. If we go over to, this is a JPEG of the same thing. I actually ran it through Photoshop, saved it as a JPEG several times, and you'll see this artifacting. This is really extreme. This was a quality of 2 run through twice, so it wouldn't usually look like this, but to some degree you're still going to get this artifacting, and that's going to show up if you try to use this as a displacement map further down the pipeline. So you want to avoid that. Stick with PNG or OpenEXR. Alright, so going back to this project that's already set up, I just want to point out a couple things. This camera is set to orthographic, and what you set this scale to and where the camera is are going to affect what values you need to put in this map value node. I'll show you the way I did it. What do we got? -1.5, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let's start from the beginning and I'll show you how I did this. Go ahead and delete your default cube and add a plane. Don't scale it or anything. I'm going to delete my existing camera and then just add a new one. You can also just clear, and I'm going to have to do that anyways. Alt-R to clear rotation, Alt-G just in case to clear location. I'm going to move it up in Z. What did I end up doing? 2 units. I'm going to set it to orthographic and set an orthographic scale of 2. In my render settings, I'm going to use square dimensions. Graphics cards tend to like multiples of 1024, and set that to 100% as well. So you can see that our camera lines up perfectly with our plane. So if I render that, we get a wonderful, wonderful gradient across the screen. Go ahead and set PNG to 16 bits. That should, depending, that may be the way my screen is rendering it. I have a bunch of stuff on right now, so my screen isn't lighting up my face. Go back to our 3D view and open up a node editor. We're gonna change the compositing around a little bit. So right now we just have your regular old whatever color it should be, that's what it is. We're gonna add a map value in between these, and instead of image we're gonna use the depth information. So we also need to make sure that we are rendering our depth, or our Z in the camera plane. And if you render this, it should show up. Are we not using the compositor right now? Oh, I'm gonna turn off combine. This didn't take. There we go. There we go. Okay, so this is all white because the depth information, as is, depth is measured in blender units, which are not always going to fall in between 0 and 1. In fact, in this case, they're all, greater than 1. So this is just clipping into white. If the camera was closer to our plane, it might be a different color. And right now the entire plane is one distance away. So no matter what, every pixel in this render is going to be the same color. Let's see if we can fix that. Oh, what did it end up being? -1. So what you're trying to do, we have our camera set up. You remember when I moved it up 2 units, we're trying to make this plane middle gray. So depending on, you may have other needs. If you don't need, like, say, a square texture, your camera may be in a slightly different place. But what you want to try to figure out, you want 0.5 basically to be the middle, that will end up being no displacement. So you want your plane to be coming out as middle gray, and you may have to adjust these in different ways to get that to happen. Okay, can't really see anything happen because all we have is a flat plane. Unfortunately, you're going to have to do everything in edit mode. I mean, you can add other meshes and then join them, Control-J with your plane, but anything that you want to show up in your texture, you're gonna want to do. Is that true? It makes it a lot easier if you just join everything into the same mesh when you do this, so you don't have to worry about things showing up or whatever. Just to see if we have anything working here at all. I'm just gonna like move stuff around, and then if we render this, first you're gonna get the you'll always see the what the camera would see first, and then as the compositor takes over, you'll see this. So yeah, that's our map, and you would just save this out, and no, I guess I can show you that process too. I'm gonna, since I already have a map, I'm just gonna delete that. I'm gonna delete our camera. Actually, let's just go here. I'm gonna add a plane, subdivide it just in case, unwrap it from the top, and then let me show you this process. I'll open up a node editor. I'm gonna switch to cycles, new material, use nodes, and we're gonna import this as an image texture. Oh, where have I? And you can do this one of 2 ways. You can plug it straight into displacement and then just use some math, similar to how we use the map value, to get it looking how you want it. You can also use a, vector? Yeah, vector bump. And plug this into the height. And nothing shows up. I have enough. There we go. For some reason my unwrap didn't take. Okay, let's go back to using our bump. Yeah, there we go. There are limits if you're using a bump map to how far it can appear to be, because this is faking the geometry. If you do the other thing I was talking about, where you take this value and then you just manipulate it, using math to get what you want. Because these are pixels. Sorry, I'm pointing at my screen. This is coming out as pixel information, so essentially, what is it, 0 to 1, might be 0 to 256. I forget how they make it work, but this should be. Okay, guys, I think I figured it out. Since, like I was saying, pointing at my screen again, all of the values coming out of this image texture are positive, and we want some of our displacement to be negative. Before we do this math, we want to subtract 0.5, right? And then multiply it, so negative values become more negative, positive values become more positive. Does that work for us? Okay. We're starting to see limits and the starting geometry, but now this will, and you can get away with a much lower angle of incidence with displacement than you can with bump, but it's still not perfect. If you want the geometry there, put the geometry there. This is kind of an optimization technique. And also, it's good to have a library of these, where'd they go? Whatever, your images, just to have them, because you can, I still have the one that I used in the original animation, and if I have some obscure corner somewhere in a render down the road that where I can reuse that, I still have it. So yeah, have fun. This is a good way to, you can just kind of like doodle. It's a good way to practice your modeling skills creating these maps. And then, you can make, a common technique is to make like little tiles, and then you can go into Photoshop. These are just images. So you can take these into Photoshop or GIMP or whatever and create, say you have like, 6 of them, you can rearrange those in different patterns to make way higher, not higher resolution, but higher dimensioned objects, larger textures that give you more variety. And using the same base components, you can make like a variety of different looking textures and use those in different parts on your, your spaceship or whatever you're making. So hope you learned something. Thanks for watching. So what advantages does this technique have over, say, baking your normal, going through like the bake process in the render menu? One of the main things is I think this displacement map is more human readable than, say, a normal map. So if you wanted to do like I was talking about and take that into Photoshop, duplicate it, move it around, take little pieces of it, it's a lot easier to look at a grayscale value and know that translates into height. That's just a little bit easier to work with. If you're trying to like cut little pieces out of a normal map and move them around, that can get pretty hairy pretty quick. You're probably going to end up with some really weird transitions in your final render. So this is a good way of knowing what you're doing. It's also just a good way to doodle and practice modeling skills. And these displacement maps that you end up with are a little bit more transferable. They're more universal. So if you have a library of those, you can use them in a bunch of different things, versus a normal map is going to be pretty specific to, like, you'll probably have a low poly version of an object, subdivide it, do a bunch of sculpting on it, and then just rewrap your baked normal straight to the original object. And trying to use that on even a slightly different object would be a fool's errand. So yeah, it's nice to have these libraries. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.